morning and welcome. Thank you so much for joining me after we missed 1 week last week. Due to technical difficulties, technology is with us tonight. Thank you for everybody that's joining. We're on the Bigfoot Outlaw channel. We're broadcasting right now across Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn, and this is going to be uploaded later on to all the podcasting platforms, so you might be watching or listening to us anywhere. My name is Inbaal. I'm a psychic, tarot reader, and witch, and I have an unbelievable guest for you tonight. I literally cannot believe it myself. So those of you watching, those of you catching up later, please put your hands together for author, publisher, and long-term occultist of Mandrake of Oxford. Please welcome Mogg Morgan. Hey! I'm so excited.
Hi.
Hey! How are you?
I'm good. Especially after that introduction. Wow.
That's like nothing. I didn't want to touch on like too many things because I thought, well, there's so many things that you do, and because we haven't caught up in like 20 years, I don't know if there's some stuff that you sort of dropped by the wayside, picked up again. And also I didn't want to make such a huge deal over how long you've been involved in the occult, because I didn't want to make it sound like you're very elderly. But you've been around longer than a lot of our viewers have been alive.
Yeah.
When did you find your way into the spiritual, the spooky world? In the mid-80s?
Well, I usually date it from 1981.
Wow.
1981, which is without saying how old I am, I used to say I was 3,500 years old. That was a good. That was a good one. That I'm the reincarnation of Seti the First.
Yeah, I've got a friend called Athena that whenever anybody asks her that, she says 4,000.
Yeah, well, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But anyway, so in 1981, when I kind of was a student, I guess, in Oxford, moved to Oxford, and it's strange. There wasn't really a lot going on, I don't think. There probably was, right? Actually, when I say that to people now, they say, I was around. Why didn't you know about me or something like that? So I don't know, but you didn't have the internet then, so people probably were in their own little kind of bubbles and stuff, and were doing quite interesting things without really knowing too much about each other's existence. I mean, I met someone at a conference the other day. I kind of had this, I don't know if you remember that these things, telephones, they had these things called telephones and stuff like that, and you could get a premium phone line.
Yeah.
It's weird.
I had a premium phone line.
Did you have a premium phone line? Anyway, they were quite hard to get, weren't they? And you could phone up, and you'd pay, obviously, the longer you could keep people on the line. I think they mainly use these for sex lines and stuff like this, but I had a sort of an occult one and stuff. So the longer people kept on the line, and I used to just put this recorded message burbling on about kind of anything I could think of, really, that was interesting to do with the occult. Anyway, it wasn't very successful. I think I had about one call a week or something like that. But I went to a conference in the north, and someone said, God, do you know, I remember your premium phone line. I used to phone it up all the time.
And you went, so it was you, your one customer.
My one customer. I met my one customer.
Yeah.
I mean, which is always amazing, because you never really believe that there is someone. I mean, the same thing. I used to do this at the same time we had a radio station. We had a pirate radio station. Somehow or other. I think I could say that.
Did you have like the big machine that does the radio thing?
I never knew if anybody ever listened to that either, because it only broadcasted about 5 square miles or something like that in Oxford. And it's just totally illegal. So in the end, we had to stop, because they kind of found out who we were. But anyway, I thought, I don't know, we are enjoying ourselves, but I don't think there's anybody listening. But then someone phoned in from a phone box. Can we play Gong or something like that? You know, because we only had about one record, I think. We played the Gong record, you know, for the Pothead Pixies and stuff. And someone phoned in and said, "We're Pothead Pixies, and thank you so much for playing all the crap that you play." You know.
Yeah, I think that the more technology expands, the more there are listeners. So I think if you average, say, like 2 listeners per show, I think we still average like 2 listeners per show, because there's a wider array of shows, and that feeling of nobody's listening is literally how people get through doing stuff that has millions of listeners, millions of viewers, because you're just there. There's a camera. There might be somebody else in the room, but that is it. That's all you see. So you get through it thinking, who's going to listen? Maybe my dad. Maybe my dad will listen. That'll be nice. It'll be nice for him. You know, he'll get to.
My parents are gone now, but no, I'm not sure what they would think of if they. Actually, but having said that, you know, we did one of the things we did in 1981, which was to have a magical art show, because that was the thing. There were people doing all this art, and so we had a magical art exhibition. We got all this occultists to do all this stuff. It was really weird stuff and things, and some of it was quite erotic, I suppose. You know, there was the time of a group called the Temple of Psychic Youth. And they were quite they pushed the boundaries quite a lot, really, one way or another, especially in their image making. So anyway, there's quite a lot of pictures of people's genitals and stuff like that, but all kind of very tastefully decorated and stuff like that. Anyway, my parents decided to come and see this exhibition, you know, and I thought, oh God, I hope they don't go and look at that picture, you know. And of course, my mother came in and she went straight across the gallery, straight to that very picture, and said, "That's pretty good, isn't it?" She said, "Yeah, no, that's interesting." She said, "You know, it's not the boring stuff, is it? You really find in art galleries."
Yeah.
So, we did a lot of good stuff, I think, in 1981.
Yeah, that's a real positive, because I'll tell you what's interesting for me, because I came on the scene like late 90s, very, very early 2000s. And the question that I found had got asked again and again and again is, so in the late 90s, early 2000s, the question was, Buffy the Vampire Slayer has got a whole bunch of new seekers. How do you guys feel about them? And then 3-4 years later, Harry Potter had got a whole bunch of new seekers. How do you feel about them? And then, in the lockdowns, I got asked about Witch Talk a lot. How do you feel about all the new seekers? So I feel like it's a pattern that has always been there in my experience. Fill me in on the previous 15 years. Has there been, because I know from just watching the Doors movie with Val Kilmer, who's so gorgeous in it, that there was a revival of witchcraft then. Has it sort of come around less and less often, more and more often? Fill me in. I'm dying of curiosity.
You have to remind me. But someone told me that, the teen witches, I think we met, when the teen witch thing was really happening. And obviously people have been doing magic for a couple of years, for a year or something like that. Everybody gets really snooty about when the new lot come along. I think that's the thing you notice, everybody becomes quite an old git really quickly. And then you get a new trend. But someone said when the teen witch things, I mean, there was something a bit strange about it, but basically the teen witch people, they were okay, really, weren't they? It could be worse.
I get excited.
They were really kind of quite cool and sort of
exactly.
They didn't have horrible ideas or anything like that. I don't know why I thought about that.
Maybe it has to do with that I'm Pisces and you're Pisces, so we feel elderly from an early age anyway. So you always feel like you're sort of welcoming the grandkids, welcoming new people. And I always find it so exciting when some new gorgeous goth girls walk into a meeting. I feel like, there's some more people to share with, to celebrate with. I've never had that, I suppose, threatened feeling. Do you know what I mean? That, what are we going to do if they're going to come with their radical ideas and, turn everybody into, I
And I
don't know.
worked so hard to learn all this stuff,
Yeah.
whatever. And they come along and they get it all on the TikTok
Yeah,
or something like that.
exactly. And they're doing it all
Everybody
wrong.
feels a bit jumped up, really.
Yeah. No, I love being, it's when I was a child, I used to love hanging with my grandparents' friends. And
Right.
now as a, middle-aged lady, I, I have this sort of cross-generational thing. I love hanging with the kids. I love hanging with the elderly. And it might not be for everybody, but I find it so it's like time travel. It's
Yeah.
like time travel. You get to view things like from somebody else's perspective.
Well, you don't say you're elderly, you say you're elder. You can
El-
say,
in the
you're an
community,
elder.
yeah.
That's you can say, always say you're an elder of the movement. You kind of,
You've
you've
been around a long
hung
time.
around for so long, there's nobody left well, I kind of involved with this tantric movement, and most of the other people have gone now. They've kind of they have actually died,
Yeah.
or they got fed up with it. That's the other thing. People get fed up with certain sort of streams of magic. It looks very glamorous and everything when you see it. Whether you might see it on the TV, in a movie. Like one for my generation was The Devil Rides Out, and people kind of that was the thing that turned a lot of people to magic. But yeah, but so you get a trend, and then it kind of, and people think, oh, I want to do that type of ritual thing, or the Wiccan thing, which you or whatever. You have to do these rituals, quite a lot of rituals sometimes in some of these traditions. Certainly one a month, right? That doesn't sound very much, one a month, but after a while, it kind of does tend to.
It's a
I
big
think
commitment.
it sort of makes time go a bit quicker, really, because there's always this thing coming up, in the month and then the 8 festivals and stuff. But after a while, I think most people do get a bit. It kind of where you need something else, really. Or people say that. I mean, I'm not too bad about that, but people it's obvious that they do get a bit. I mean, someone said to me when I was a student, you can tell a religion when it's real when people get really bored with it. Yeah, a real
Yeah.
religion is actually quite boring, because it's real. It's been going on for ages and ages, and people have kind of know all the songs and they know all the rituals by now, and whatever. So, yeah, I think that's the trend I see. I finally remembered what your question was. So 1981 revived people. In my tradition, they talk about the magical revival. Like you have Christian revival, whatever. We have the magical revival.
Why not?
I think there's people are always saying, oh, it's happening now, but I think 1981 was a sort of magical revival, really. Like I said, there wasn't much going on, so there probably were. Or the bookshops were still there, and they've been going for sort of 100 years, and they're quite important. But really, it did seem to be things were in a low ebb. Some of the traditional covens and stuff from the 1950s were very difficult to get in touch with,
Yeah.
apparently, and whatever. But suddenly, from 1981, something happened. I said people were. I don't know. There were sleepers. There were all these sleepers everywhere, and then suddenly they were activated,
Yeah.
and the sleeper has awakened. I mean, on a physical level, I think that happened. There were friends of mine who were involved in an American order, the OTO, the Order of Oriental Templars, which is quite a mysterious order. That you kind of get find these things in bookshops and say, God, I really want to join that. But actually, it wasn't functioning very much as an order at that stage. you had sort of everybody was just an associate waiting for them to get this thing, have more than one of them, to sort of get to a critical mass. And then suddenly 1981, everybody got enough. There were enough people suddenly around who were interested to do wild things and whatever, the whole thing woke up.
Yeah.
I mean, I
So it
think
became a
basically
movement.
that was the Crowley OTO type thing, which had been bubbling away before that. I'm not saying that, but it kind of reached a kind of explosion in 1980s, I think. And there were the kind of people that before that had been writing books and working quite privately. Plus, as you know, a lot of magical people, from the outside, you think, well, we're all either mad or you're all interested, but there tend to be a lot of rivalries, as you know, between people. And if you like, there was an older generation of magicians who'd sort of, and witches and stuff who kind of got into this stuff in the 1950s.
Yeah.
And they were a bit sniffy about all of us lot who turned up in the 1980s and were into Aleister Crowley and stuff like that. So that would be the thing that would split people up. There would be the people who were into the kind of slightly more, I don't know, you can't really say it's sensible type of witchcraft, right?
But like traditional.
It's just as nutty in its own way.
Yeah.
But they got a thing about, they had a thing about Aleister Crowley that they thought, Aleister Crowley, that's going a bit too far, really, But now everybody's that's gone. Now people are much more sort of
open-minded,
not suspicious of each other, but then they're suspicious for a different reason now. I mean, maybe it was because of what you say. Well, everybody has to make a living and stuff.
Yeah.
So they always used to say that each town, there's only room in one town for one witch, right? Traditionally,
wow.
Right, because there's only enough business really in a village anyway for one witch, and if you get two witches in a village, there's always trouble. One way or another. And I think it's a sort of job market share type thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's only enough business for one, or at least if someone's.
I think we create our own economy. Because I give readings. I also receive readings. Yeah. I will buy the occult books and also gift them. I think we create our own economy, and the bigger we are, the bigger the economy is. You can't imagine how thrilled I am, because I'm like out in the sticks. I'm out in West Yorkshire. It's like only villages. You have the big village, and then we're in the small village. That's what you have. If you want to go to a city, you've got a big drive on your hands. And when I first ran into another witch in like the mum group, in the sort of mum and tot group, my excitement knew no bounds. Finally, another witch in the village. Right. So yeah, it's a personality, isn't it?
Do you hate each other now, or do you get on all right?
So no. It's circumstantial. Because we're moms, there's people that have family help. And when they have family help, they can go out to the woods and celebrate and party and meet up with other people. We have no family help. Every time somebody wiped the bum of any of my children, it was either me or husband, nobody else. So I have not been out in the woods celebrating. I haven't been in Witchfest now in 15 years, making
I was going to ask you about that.
I'm making a glamorous return this November.
It's going to Sunbury or something like that, or
Kempton Racecourse.
Yeah, Kempton Racecourse. So it's got a brand new venue. I did look actually, but you've got to have a sign of the times, right? You have to have a safety certificate before you can go now.
Oh, really?
Before you can exhibit, you have to have a safety certificate.
I didn't know that.
I got to that stage on that. I said, well, I didn't want to sell books and stuff.
Yeah, you probably could just Google it. But 20 years ago, when I used to do a lot of parties, I used to need third-party insurance
Yeah.
which was, I thought it was to secure people against me giving them bad predictions, but it
Right.
was really more like in case my crystal ball fell on their foot or something like that. So that third party insurance, it was something like £100 a year, which then I thought was a fantastical amount.
Yeah.
And I renewed it a few years, but now nobody asks for it anymore. So
Well, they do. They do. If you have a stall at this, you have to have.
yeah, I didn't know that.
All right. So
What a funny
maybe
anecdote.
I could get an exemption, but I went the one. That's when I probably the first time I met you was at the Witch Fest when we decided to have a stall there, and do stuff. I think I spoke at the Witchcraft at the Witch Fest one year, uh, and I also did a bookstall and stuff another year. And the Witch Fest, it's probably it was quite family orientated, wasn't it? Would
Yeah,
you
no,
say
it's
that
still
was true? Quite a lot of families came.
it's
Anyway,
still very family friendly.
family friendly. So anyway, people used to shepherd them past our stall.
Just to
Which
be
I
on the
don't know
safe
why.
side.
There wasn't that. It was.
Yeah, I forgot you were there, but I think we were on the same flyer. I remember a flyer that I was on, and I
Right.
think we were both in like equivalent circles on the flyer. I vaguely remember. You know how you don't remember stuff like that?
I know.
It's my business to remember stuff like that. Let's
And
flush
that's
up
why they
some.
got me to talk. I mean, because I'm quite involved with books and publishing and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So I don't know. I felt a bit ambiguous about it, but they asked me to talk about books and stuff. It's I thought I don't know if that was the most interesting subject to talk about, but
I
it
think
was
it
it
is.
was all right. It went down okay. About the
Yeah,
kind of
our lot
witchcraft
are
books.
such book geeks.
Yeah.
Our lot will scroll TikTok for 10 hours and read books for 10 hours, and there's no, we might be the last community, except for perhaps the churches, that read books and enjoy them and learn from books.
We're
We
very
got
book
some,
people. You're right. Absolutely right. We're the people of the book, really.
yeah.
One way or another.
Yeah, some of us at least twice over. We've got some messages from
We've got
viewers. So
messages.
we've got Roger saying howdy. We've got
Oh,
Sandy
Roger.
greeting us. Kayla greeting us. Latro stopping by for a hello, and he's about to head out in Austin.
Austin,
Uh,
Texas.
yeah.
Wow.
Lucy, sending lots of love to everybody affected in Texas. Mwah. Lucy,
Topi. See, someone remembers Topi. Actually, it's having a
oh,
moment now. Uh,
what is Topi?
Topi is the Temple of Psychic Youth.
Oh, that you referred
Yeah,
to.
yeah, that's right. And I knew quite a lot of people involved with that, and also published quite a lot of their, not quite a lot, a couple of their books and stuff, one way or another. I know some of the people. Quite a controversial organization in some ways, but it was a sort of a temple of psychic youth. It was supposed to be like a youth movement but quite sort of left field,
Alternative.
I suppose you'd say.
Yeah.
Very, very controversial, but hugely influential in lots of ways. Very, very interesting group, I think. And would
Mm.
have lots of new technology. So they had a book called Television Magick. Right. Well, there you go. You see, people think of pagans
Television was new.
going to be all very folksy and stuff like that, but they used to use the television, but I don't think they tuned it to anything in particular. So they used things like white noise, basically, from the television, and maybe other. Plus, they were also very into creating television and visual stuff, quite sort of stunning. Some of the things, some of the awful things that people say um, about witches and pagans are actually kind of they're sort of it's almost like
True.
they created horror movies in a way. They created images that look like the things that people are always accusing witches of doing but so they're manipulating images and manipulating people's consciousness. But an awful lot of your culture, if you think about, they were very into body piercing, which was incredibly weird at the time, but
very ahead of its time.
Fairly mainstream now, I would have thought.
Yeah.
I did on the radio show. I actually did an interview. A friend of mine was having his penis pierced, right? If I could say, I don't know if I could talk about that. So,
let's see if the system kicks us off or not. It's all automatic.
I've done it now. They were into genital piercing, yeah. So, which is extremely left field, very, very quite, and tattooing in a way. The amount of tattooing that they did, that most of the very posh tattooists were people who were involved with this group. And I think at that stage, body piercing was probably illegal, really, one way or another. Or at least body piercing wasn't illegal, but you couldn't have you weren't allowed to have an anesthetic. Right? Anesthetic was illegal. So trying to get one of these quite difficult piercings without any sort of anesthetic was quite tricky. So they had their own underground network of people who did this now, which were also appeared in all these films and stuff. So I go along with his friend to do this interview with a piercer as he's actually doing the piercing.
Wow!
This broadcast on our pirate radio station and stuff, but
was there screaming?
So bad. Loads of people have piercings now, and certainly in terms of tattooing, which was again very magical. You can see that those sort of body modification, tattooing and stuff like that really has a big overlap with the occult and magical movement one way or another. I mean, but now obviously, like with any interesting thing, it goes kind of completely mainstream, and which is fine, nothing wrong with that. But people forget how occult that whole thing was. It had a whole, and that would be the sort of thing that Temple of Psychic Youth were into. And the guy who actually was one of the big Genesis Porridge, which is always thought as a strange name.
That's what Lucienne said, and I didn't.
It's Genesis Porridge. Who was a kind of interesting guy. I actually, I wanted to invite him to do something. So here's a bit of magic. So I wanted to meet Genesis Porridge. To invite him to do this stuff, and I have no idea how to get in touch with him. He was a very sort of private individual. So I went to Watkins' bookshop, and there was a kind of little parcel on the doorstep, right? A little red parcel, and someone said. So I went to pick it up. I said, don't pick it up, don't pick it up. It's a Magick shop. It's going to be a horrible curse and something like that. But anyway, I'd already picked it up there. So I picked it up. I opened this little parcel, and there was a little sexual talisman inside it. It didn't mean it looked particularly sexual, but you could, when you read what the words were and everything. So I looked at this thing, and then in Watkins, I took this, opened a bottle of what's called Thothfather, which is another one of these weird things that people like me are into, which is this weird perfume. So I looked at the talisman and took a big sniff of the perfume, and then I walked out the door and ended up Genesis Porridge.
Oh.
Which was the intention. Well, at least it was certainly on my mind that I really wanted to see him and he was in London to meet his sister and stuff like that. So yeah, he was a musician, a heck of an interesting guy. He's dead now, but also he transitioned. I don't know if this is correct. He's not around to say he certainly. He transitioned from male to female, or he swapped gender with his then girlfriend, if you like. Oh. So you get an idea of the kind of weird head spaces that these people
were in. The very first trans people I met were on the pagan scene. I think alternative people go with alternative people, and so you'll have a lot of crossover between a lot of alternative ideas, which then, like you said, there's nothing negative in them being mainstream, becoming mainstream, because what the alternative world allows you is to explore the sides of you that the mainstream world doesn't allow you until you get that critical mass. Critical mass? Critical mass? Critical mass.
Critical mass.
Yeah, both.
So,
Works
no, I
both
think that's the way
ways.
it goes. So I come from that tradition that is a little bit too. See, like the background behind Mogg, so would I. Oh, you like the background? Yeah,
The
well,
background, the background. Yeah, yeah.
it's from an Egyptian tomb, which again is one of the things that I'm very involved with is Egyptian magic, and I've developed a particular Egyptian magical system that combines kind of east and west really with kind of, well, anyway, so the tomb, I think it's one of the painted tombs in not in the Valley of the Kings, but I think it might be uh Deir Medina, sort of the village with all the craftsmen there, and it kind of shows the ideal afterlife really, which is this kind of beautiful, well, the best bit of any life, with crops and food and people enjoying themselves and all the rest. So yeah, so it's from a tomb, uh, but and I do sort of videos and stuff. I've got quite a good collection of this sort of stuff. But yeah, no, I really relate to that one way
Yeah.
or another of what we're aiming for. Immortality and a good life.
Yeah. So what was your shall we say gateway drug into the occult? Where did it meet you? You're a regular teenager going about your teenagery things. What was the first thing? Because for me it was the tarot. It was just so standard, so ordinary. If the elders of the church tell you that the tarot will lead you to witchcraft, they're not wrong. They're not wrong. So where did you take the leap from ordinariness to all this?
God, I don't know really, but yeah, I go into the Atlantis bookshop and buying that. I think we use the same tarot deck. You use the Thoth tarot deck, don't you? The Book of Thoth. Um, and I think I went to the Atlantis bookshop, or maybe the Jimmy Page from the band Led Zeppelin. He had an occult bookshop,
Oh,
um, on an occult sort of knick-knacky shop. Really nice shop in just off High Street, Kensington. I think maybe he still lives there, Jimmy Page. I don't know. Uh,
wow.
but anyway, he obviously is a big collector, and they actually had this lovely shop. Um, a little boutique shop with a kind of great stained glass image of Baphomet on it, and kind of the usual things, the mainstream stuff, and also all sorts of kind of stapled together Samostat material of someone's confessions or whatever. Someone's asking what was the gateway drug. Yeah, well, there you are, the tarot. So I think I bought the tarot there. I certainly bought a copy of Magick in Theory and Practice from his shop, and I probably bought the tarot thing there. And you're right, that tarot card, when you're not used to it, it's very evocative, isn't it? It really does kind of take you on this journey. So with the two things, with learning the tarot and with that book, I've
Yeah.
still got my parents' house then, reading. I think that's a very common experience for people like me, to be kind of invoking Baphomet or something in their bedroom upstairs in their parents' house.
And then you move out and you leave them with a ghostly residue of whatever it was that your hormonal teen self was invoking as a first invocation and evocation. Yeah,
I
that
think
sounds
I
about
think they
right.
rescue you. I think the reason you do it is, from my point of view, right? I always get on right with my parents. Is your parents, ideally, your parents are your kind of backup mechanism, right? And if anything bad happens to you with the right parents, I'm sure this is the case for you, then you can always rely on your mother or your father to come
I've
and
still got a
sort
dad.
it
I've
out
still
for
got a
you.
dad, and if anything goes wrong, he's still the first one I call. He's
Yeah.
like a 5-hour flight away. Doesn't matter. Anything goes wrong, anything goes bad. That's my first phone call. If I've got like one token, one phone token, then yeah, that's the number one. So yeah, I'm just thinking, have I got magic in theory and practice? Magic, ritual, power. No, I've got magic, ritual, power, and purpose.
Liber ABA, you see that. Funny enough, Liber ABA is Liber Abba. Abba is father.
Yeah.
So the magic Crowley's magic book is like your father.
Yeah. But could not be more different.
And it kind of, I think that's very because then you do these things in this book then, and you know, there's some real exercises in there that kind of really do open doorways and stuff, and are actually quite, quite scary in a way. You know, like they say about, because there's an exercise about raising Kundalini and stuff, which sounds very glamorous and everything like that. But basically, Crowley starts his book by saying, well, you do these sort of exercises, and if you're not used to yoga or done a lot of meditation, suddenly all these weird things start happening in your body and everything like that, and you kind of, most people find that they kind of chicken. Well, everybody, I think everybody is common. You kind of chicken out, really. Once you start feeling that, whatever you call it, that rush or that that thing that your body is suddenly turning inside out or whatever, then it's natural to say, I think I better stop.
read up a little bit more and figure out
what read a bit more of the book or whatever, and whatever. But as I say, if something really went wrong and a demon turned up or whatever, I think you could probably call for your mum and dad to come. I always felt that they were psychologically that they were there as well. Sometimes in visions and stuff like that. That they are one of your first allies. They are your ancestors, aren't they? And that's we make a joke about it, but the idea that your ancestors are something, especially the departed ones, who you might kind of ideally call upon as allies to help you in your time of need, which is the kind of, again, that's a very Egyptian sort of way as well, that their ancestors were kind of hung around, and if they needed something, they kind of come and say, "Oh, can you go and see?" It's usually they'd have two lots of ancestors, all the ancestors are dead. Say, "Well, so and so he's in the afterlife as well. Can you go and sort of lean on him and tell him to stop, to tell his relatives to stop being so mean to me or whatever?" So there's that transition. But yeah, ancestors or allies of one sort or another are really important in the end. So I kind of just thought about that. Yeah, maybe that's why Crowley called it Liber ABA. Now, there's probably some, weird numerological reason why he did that, but
it's very possible.
That's a nice one,
The Hebrew, because I've not read a lot of Crowley, but I love 777 because I love systems, and the Hebrew is really impressive. I find that a lot of occultists will embrace a little bit of Hebrew, and then you can really tell you might as well not bother. But when somebody who otherwise wouldn't even have the background gets really into the Hebrew in the way that they really understand it, it shows. And for me, Crowley has a real powerful 2-footed hold in it, and I was really surprised to find a lot of Arabic in 777 as well. So it's really across the board. So Abba must have been, also, yeah, there must have been multiple meanings,
isn't it? It's Liber. I don't know, Liber ABA, right? If it is so that would be, well, it's also called Book 4, right? So ABA comes to 4, doesn't it?
Yeah.
A is 1, B is 2, and you got another A.
Yeah.
So hence he calls it Book 4.
Yeah.
And Book 4 is, again, there's probably going to be lots of clever people who know why Book 4 and stuff, but I guess
the 4 in the tarot is the emperor, who is the father issues. It's the daddy, so that could be yet another connection.
Yeah. The number 4 is very, very important in all these different esoteric systems, one way or another. They also, like, because of the supposed, one of the names of God has 4 letters, I suppose. That's one thing. And quite often, books, magical books, are written in 4 parts, or
Right.
3 parts with a 4th part, which, you know, you might get if you're lucky, or it maybe doesn't exist, or people write the 4th part of a book. So yeah,
Like
these
the
are.
Hitchhiker's Guide.
Someone's written on. Did you see that? They said Genesis had a Thoth
Yeah.
4 wands tattoo.
Yeah. So
He was very into tattoos. I don't know what that is.
yeah, so
That's
the Four of Wands
yeah,
is actually, I think it's a very gender affirming card,
yeah,
because each of the wands has like a dove on the one side and a ram on the other, and they're not even like neat and tidy. It's not like dove ram, dove ram.
yeah.
It's kind of mixed. So I've always found that it had like a gendered
Oh
aspect
yeah, look
to
at
it,
that.
right?
Yeah,
So we've got the ram and the dove. Is it a ram? I don't know. Ram
yeah.
and dove. So like masculine, feminine, and each wand sort of goes from one to the other. So the fact that that Genesis had transitioned and had a partner who also transitioned is very this. So yeah, I that's sorry, such mind-blowing stories. Thank you, Lucianne, for filling us in. And also, Lucianne, how old are you? Why do you know all of that? I thought Lucianne was like 30 years old. It's very youthful, very youthful.
No, I think psychic TV. All right, you got a Temple of Psychic Youth, and you got the music that they did. The there's a whole kind of lot of bands that, but theirs was called Psychic TV, uh,
Mm,
which I think was probably the most poppy of the whole lot of them. Uh, but there's Nurse with Wound and the Swans and Coil and all the rest. Well, of course, this is from ages ago and stuff. But I think when they went back on the road, I think about 10 years ago, uh, and mainly in touring in Europe, and they found that they had thousands of fans. Loads of people knew their music and really liked them. A sort of really sort of big following. So I guess people still like the music. Some of it is a
yeah.
bit unlistenable, I think, but some of it I really, really still like, one way or another.
So
So we
when
put
I
words
was
in your mouth, Lucienne. Are you kind of a new fan of psychic TV, maybe? Oh, you're a
no,
huge.
no, 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 no.
There you go.
She's
You've
52.
got
So
taste.
yeah,
Quite
I
a really, really interesting uh, sort of music. Sometimes, as I say, it's unlistenable. I think it's horrible because they're very into. I mean, I think if you're pushing the envelope, you have to do that. They're very into what's called. I think they invented what they call industrial music, which sounds a bit alarming and stuff, but which can be very, very discordant and atonal music. So music without any tones in it, which can be actually quite beautiful, but potentially it can also be really discordant and horrible. But they have
yeah,
whole festivals in Europe to do with that sort of stuff. And
does
yes,
sound really European. But
so
when
yeah, well, good
I
luck to
worked
you.
on
Yeah, I
the
like to go too.
when I worked on the psychic TV show in the early 2000s on Sky, at
Mm.
first we launched with the name Psychic TV, thinking nothing like that existed, because before you could Google anything, and then we had to change the name because there already was something called Psychic TV, and and that was it. We were like, oh, really? A band? Literally nobody in the room knew about it. And that's people who are in that world, in the know. Literally nobody knew. So that's our little connection to psychic TV, which is like exactly the opposite of a connection.
Well, I
And
don't know. So people talk about their band. One of the albums was it's got this rather rude name called Throbbing Gristle,
mm,
and I've found Paul Morley and all sorts of kind of you know, they all seem to know that one. There are certain things that are around, but some of it, yeah, is it's a bit obscure, I suppose, in one way to whatever. Anyway, so you had to change your name. You know, one of the people in that thing was she's written a biography of her time in that band. This thing, and she's got another name. I'm not sure if I can repeat this on there, which is Cozy Fanny Tootie. Right, and name. There's a good stage name for you.
Yeah, because that's a
her biography
that's an Italian
really
play, isn't it? Cosi fan tutti is that
Mozart opera, maybe.
Yeah. It means that's how they all do. That's what they all do. Something like that. Così is like this.
Really know
Fun is to do. Tutti is everybody. That's what everybody does. That's the meaning of it. So that's really cute to take that and pun it.
Well, of course, because then you got, well, you know, it is a pun, isn't it, or a euphemism for something else, you might say. I don't think. Well, you never know with Mozart whether he might have got the joke as well, right? Because Mozart was a kind of one of us, right?
Was he?
Yeah, he was you would say probably the greatest musician that we know of who's ever lived. You know, I think that is reasonable to say. But he was a Freemason, and but it not in a kind of. I mean, Freemasons make sound a bit square nocadays and stuff, but I think then they were
boundary breakers,
kind of much more cutting edge kind of occultist types. So yeah, no, I think he did lots. He would have got the joke in that, and he wrote this opera, The Magic Flute, which is about us, right? It's about paganism essentially, and the magical journey to the underworld, one way or another, within a kind of commercial thing. So yeah, no, I hats off to Mozart. He's
amazing. So I'm going to stop you reminiscing and fast forward you. No, you're not going anywhere. No, and fast forward you just to present time. What book have you got on? What are you doing at the moment? Please share with your new adoring crowds.
Well, we've got quite a lot of projects on. We're still practicing Magick and developing our own system, which, as I say, is a combination of Egyptian magic, but not like you've ever seen it before, and with the tantric tradition. So we do lots of work with that. I've written quite a few books now. The recent one, I kind of like the Egyptian Genesis of the Nephilim, right? This is the weirdest book I've ever written, which is about, because people are obsessed with the Nephilim. So and I'm obsessed with Egypt and stuff. So I wanted to kind of, they just said to it, as could the Nephilim have anything in Egypt? And I thought, nah, probably not. But someone said do it. So I discovered that they probably do have quite a good connection with not just a peripheral too. Is quite important. So doing that sort of stuff and trying to spread the word about magic. Doing events. We've got a Thelemic Symposium coming up in September. That's the sort of thing I probably should mention. So I'm a diplomat, I suppose, a magical diplomat as well as a philosopher. I'm always trying to build bridges between different traditions. So the Thelema and Crowley, people can be very sectarian.
Yeah.
Like with any any tradition, you know, people get kind of quite proprietorial about things, and they're, you know, like I think what you were saying at the beginning, really, if the pagan lot, if we all work together a lot more, we'd have more, right? We'd have, you know, I really love there to be a pagan temple in Britain or something like that, but we tend to sort of cut across each other in some ways, you know. We don't always support each other's work.
There's a lot of ego. I think there's a lot of ego.
Thing, I suppose.
Like, me, I just channeled a god that nobody's ever heard of. I made up a new star sign. Me. Look how important I am. And it's, exhausting.
It's a shame, but it's human nature, I suppose. People, when you've got something special, you don't like it if someone takes your secret. So there's this idea we got the secret, and if people feel they've got it, they're always worried someone else is going to nick it and stick it in their book and become more famous and get more whatever they want. Anyway, but the Thelemic Symposium, the Thelemic scene and the Crowley scene is also can be very divided. So the idea of the symposium was not to be like that, but just bring everybody, get all the interesting people together, and just who are interested in Crowley, or if you're interested in Crowley, you can be interested in almost anything, because as you know, Crowley, like you were saying, that Crowley is so much. There isn't any aspect of magic and witchcraft that Crowley didn't have something to say about, and probably written a book about it in one way or another. I mean, some people even say the kind of witchcraft owes an awful lot. As you know, the witchcraft group in London, they used to do a Crowley ritual every month, and that was a Gardnerian witchcraft coven, right? With Zachary Cox and those sorts of Rainbow Bridge coven in London. So really, these barriers between the different traditions are a bit artificial. So people just come. All they have to do is be vaguely interested in Crowley, or have something interesting to say about Crowley and the magic that they're doing, and they talk. And we don't just talk; we do things, and we kind of, So come to that, and maybe we could tell people that's the 28th of September, and it won't cost the earth, and it won't.
I'm gonna flash I'm gonna flash the name on the screen. I'm writing it as a message. 28th September, International Thelemic Symposium. Is that in Oxford?
That's in Oxford, yeah.
Oxford.
I should have had you have to go to a website to get the tickets or whatever, but anyway, you can find it. The Visible College is doing it, or if you come on Facebook and search for International Thelemic Symposium, you'll find all the details.
Yeah, for anyone that is on my Facebook, if anyone is on my Facebook, when I repost this, I'm going to tag Mogg so you can sort of go and follow him as well.
Yeah.
Amazing. So Thelemic Symposium, we've got the book with the Nephilim. Let me put the title on.
There's also someone flashed up there about the north of Britain. There's the Northern Occult Conference, of course, but that's early next year, May next year, in sort of Heskin Hall, I think it is, which is not far from Preston. And that's a really, really good conference gathering. The gatherings, in a way, magical movement, people associate it with covens and temples, but the gatherings are probably one of the more important ways that people network and learn magic, is by going and meeting other magicians and pagans and witches.
I think even for solitaries, it's so nice to feel less alone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Amazing. So I'm going to start winding down. Why? Because I'm trying to keep it under an hour, because if I send you the file to upload to Instagram, it sometimes sort of gets very antsy if you try to upload something that's over an hour. So thank you so much for coming and chatting. That was fabulous. I learned so much. I enjoyed so much. And, come again if you can.
Love to.
Fabulous.
Can I do the Crowley, do what thou wilt, shall be the whole of the law.
Love is the law. Love on the will.
Ah, you know it. There you go.
Fabulous. Thank you, everybody, for watching. And if you want to get hold of Mogg and you can't find him, come to me. I'll send you straight to him. Thank you so much.